Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Zoom conversation I'm having with Arlin Larson, who is a longtime member, a much longer member than I am of Senior College, and he has a great history with it. In fact, he probably knows about its beginnings in ways that I simply don't. So we're going to have this Zoom conversation, and I'm wanting to start off by saying thank you very much, Arlin, for making this possible.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Good, good, good. So you were telling me, I think, that you came to Belfast or Senior College, maybe you came before, but 2006, is that a day that you identified as connecting you with Senior College?
I think that's when I started teaching.
Okay.
Yeah, we moved to Maine at the end of 2001, and where I was minister at the Congregational Church in Searsport. And it was 2006 I started teaching at Senior College.
Great. And
ever since then, yeah.
You've been teaching off and on regularly since then. And you were president for several years.
Yeah, I was on the board for a total of 8 years altogether. First, I filled out someone's term who had resigned for 2 years, and then I had 6 years of my own. And one of those years I was vice president. And at that time, we had this plan that the vice president would kind of automatically become the president. It agreed to. And I signed on to that and became the president. And then no one would follow me on that path. So I ended up being the president for 3 years, which I think was a good thing. I thought that 1-year presidencies really weren't enough. And I was very happy to be for 3 years.
Good. And now you are still teaching for Senior College.
Yeah, I'm still teaching. And I'm chair of the Archives Committee, a job I inherited from Shirley Jarvella, who had done it for many, many years.
And what does that involve? Apart from archives, what does it involve? Looking at them?
Yeah,
storing them.
Yeah. Every organization is responsible for maintaining its records.
Yeah. And
the Archives Committee collects and preserves the Senior College records. A lot of it, probably the bulk, is minutes of board meetings, and now there's 20 years of that, and annual meetings, and then all of the newsletters and course catalogs. And Shirley and her group really did a wonderful job of getting everything together, including much of the background work of the early years of organizing Senior College.
Great. Yeah. Is it all digitized?
That's just beginning.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's been a project of mine. The archives professions still want you to have everything in hard copy. But the digital is still sort of too ephemeral with the technology changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our project now is to try to digitize much of what's on paper. And then also, for now, we're producing so many electronic records, but also to convert them to hard copy.
Right, right.
So
several stages
of all this is quite a
quite
a job.
Yeah. And as you say, it's going on, and it's not yet complete, right? So
no, and we've been the archives are really just a file cabinet in the Senior College office at the Hutchison Center.
Okay.
And we've been not exactly banned from the Hutchison Center for most of the year now, but we've had very little access. And so a lot of things have just been on hold. I've been over there a few times myself working, but
right.
So we're looking forward, the Archives Committee is looking forward to being able to be in person and really work in the office again.
Great. And I think there's a chance that we might, at some point in the summer, be able to be in a tiny part of the Hutchinson Center in one of the big classrooms, which you would know better than I would, with appropriate social distancing. So it's a gradual re-entry.
Yeah, I'm hoping by fall things will be back to pretty full.
Yeah.
The Hutchinson Center is having groups already.
Is it? Okay, good.
Small groups.
Right. Good. And of course, it has a patio too, so it can have outdoor meetings as well, I suppose. Good. Tell me about your course. You've taught Marilynne Robinson her writings, and this is the end of the trilogy. Is that right, Jack?
Her latest novel, Jack, is the fourth in a series.
The fourth. Okay.
That began with Gilead, that won her the Pulitzer Prize. And the four, Gilead, which is a small town in Iowa that is modeled after Tabor, Iowa, which is where John Brown set up camp when he was going back and forth into Kansas and Missouri. So that abolitionist town begins the series, and the protagonist is the grandson of this firebrand abolitionist from the 19th century. And the series is, first one, Gilead, is this grandson, John Ames, as a very old man actually on death's door. He has a very serious heart condition. And he's reflecting on his life, sort of writing a memoir for his very young son. Ames is about 70 or so, and his son is, I believe, 6. So he's writing a memoir, and he narrates the story as this memoir. But the other books in the series are simultaneous with Gilead. The characters are largely the same in all of them. Jack is the very troubled son of John Ames' best friend, Robert Bout. He considers himself, and is considered by his family and almost everyone who knows him, as just pure trouble. He's the black sheep. The people who look after him, he's a stray, so to speak. And so the novel, Jack, it's quite controversial in the sense, because to a large extent, it consists of Jack feeling sorry for himself at somewhat great length. So some people find it rather tedious. On the other hand, it's a great story of star-crossed lovers and forbidden love across racial lines, where the woman that he encounters and loves is likewise alienated from her family, which is, her father is a prominent black minister in Memphis, and is totally against her having anything to do with this disreputable Jack character who just got out of jail and is basically a bum and describes himself that way. So in all of the books, Marilynne Robinson is exploring or has I don't know if it's a thesis exactly, but it's about the miraculousness of any human life, especially the least likely. And all of the main characters in her novels are sort of the least likely. There's little action. They don't accomplish much of anything, but they just exist. And that's a lot of the point for her.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
so this is not, they say this is not an action adventure kind of novel. And will not be everybody's cup of tea by any means. But there's an awful lot to gain if you see it through. Marilynne Robinson is well. Okay, here's an indication of her point of view. All of the main characters' fathers are members of the clergy, and who are turned to for reflection on the lives of themselves and the others. Marilynne Robinson herself is a Calvinist and brings in Calvinist themes, and in Jack's case especially, having to do with predestination. In other words, is he doomed to be a troubled, hopeless character? Well, that's probably enough about the
Great.
book.
I haven't read Jack, but I have read Gilead,
Yeah.
and I've always loved essays that Marilynne Robinson writes in national magazines, and chats with prominent political figures that she has. So, I mean, she's one of our better known national writers. Is that fair to say?
Oh, certainly, and in the eyes of many, maybe the most important a liberal Protestant thinker of the day.
Yeah,
and,
I mean that
alone very well, everything's very rich. The novels were all beautifully written.
Yeah. So in other words, this will bring your teaching of what is a quatrain of the 4 novels. This will bring it to an end. You'll have started with Gilead and seen it through.
I will, but yes. I have to say that Jack cries out for a sequel or for a 5th.
I see.
In my mind.
I see. About
and that would be because each of the 4 novels is in the voice of a different character. It's their story. And the woman Jack loves, Della Miles, plays as large a role in Jack as Jack does, but her story is not really ever told. And you just really want to know what she's about.
And remind me where she's from.
Della?
Yeah.
She's the daughter of a prominent Black minister in Memphis.
So that would take us to a different culture, environment.
And Jack is set in St. Louis.
Right. Okay.
And when Jack leaves Gilead, is kind of abandons the town in shame over having impregnated a local girl.
Right.
He goes off to St. Louis.
Right.
And Della has, and I don't know, they don't give all the reasons, but she's taken a job in St. Louis as a high school teacher. And that's where they accidentally encounter each other there.
Yeah. What would somebody who took the course, say they hadn't read the other 3 novels, what would you say that somebody would gain from an exposure to this novel of Marilynne Robinson?
Jack will stand alone pretty well.
Right.
He he's a prominent character in Gilead, which you've read, where he is the namesake of Ames, John Ames, who's the main character in Gilead, and where Ames worries constantly about him, but also regards him as a rival for Ames' young wife. And Ames is very worried about Jack in that regard. You learn in Jack that Jack doesn't have any thought about that or any clue.
Right,
That Ames has been worrying needlessly about.
Right. Okay.
And Jack is a prominent character in Home, of which is in his sister Glory's voice, but Jack is there on probably every other page. So, but there's enough in Jack, I think, where you don't need to have read the other novels to appreciate Jack.
That's really important to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's Marilynne Robinson's themes that are sort of more of what explicitly brought out in Gilead are there in Jack too.
Yeah.
And so you get a good idea about her and her outlook on things from Jack too.
Great. So you'll be covering the plot of the novel and some issues around Marilynne Robinson in your course and other things.
I still have 2 weeks, before
you do.
I have to teach it. Oh.
Yes, you do. You mean you're working out what you're gonna do, right? Right. Okay, good. Right.
You could, because there's all of her novels, you could spend unlimited time on, and any page just is worth opening up, and there'd be a lot to discuss and to learn and references to look up. And so we'll do something about kind of getting the story out there, I expect in the other times I've taught novels, and mine's not a literature my background is theological, not literary. So I teach it as a philosopher and as a theologian.
Right.
But when I've taught the novels, the class has almost always read the novel ahead of time.
Yeah.
So that the basic outline of it really isn't an issue.
Right. So you sort of jump in. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yes, and so there's a continuity with studying with you that people already will be building on. So people know you and your approach, which leads me to ask you a little bit more, really also for my own enlightenment, about Senior College. And did you know the rabbi who started it in the whole state of Maine?
No, I didn't know him. I knew many of the people who started Senior College at Belfast, and which opened in the fall of 2001. So it was just 5 years by the time I got involved. And it turns out, because you get involved in things not really thinking about their history often.
Right.
But at a certain point, I got interested. The senior colleges started in about 2000 in Portland at University of Southern Maine. But the Rabbi Harry Skye had an idea that which seems that we would just take for granted now, but that just because people were older didn't mean that they weren't interested in things any longer. And didn't want to be active and make a contribution. So he had this idea about having classes, but not just that there'd be classes, but that seniors would also be doing the teaching and running the organizations. So it'd be kind of a total organization for seniors, or for at least the ones who like to take classes. And he took that idea to the University of Southern Maine, and I don't remember who was the president then, but they embraced it. and went to the Maine legislature that voted seed money.
Mm.
So there was kind of an explosion of senior colleges right about, we were one of the first. There's 17 now around the state.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
And our model was basically, we took from what had been worked out slightly earlier in Bar Harbor for ours. We're an independent 501c3. Some of the other senior colleges have more organic ties with the University of Maine.
Right.
That we don't, and which is, I think we agree, has turned out to be a blessing. Our independence has turned out to be a blessing.
Right.
For us.
Right. I mean, so where were classes first meeting when it was started in Belfast?
Oh, at the Hutchison Center.
Oh, so we've always been connected.
Yeah, the Hutchison Center was founded right at the same time.
I see. Right.
About the same time, there was a big community effort with many organizations and community leaders came together to hear about this thing that it was going on in Portland. And they had hired a director, Callie Lightfoot, who came to Belfast and other towns to help them organize their senior college. So it got, it was going within a year, and on pretty much the same basis as it is now, with a couple of differences that turned out that what was expected at the beginning. One was that it was thought that senior college at Belfast would be far more expensive than it is, and would have to hire staff and do very significant fundraising. And that turned out to be the case in Bar Harbor and now at the one in Brunswick. But senior college at Belfast developed a model that could be all volunteer, basically. And so that was, one way that things were different than was expected originally, and has been a blessing for all kinds of reasons. And another way that things turned out differently than everybody thought at the beginning, I mean, even down in Portland, was that in the beginning, the idea of senior college, while classes were the core, it was also thought that educational travel would be a big part of it. And some kind of agreement was made with the Elder Hostel. I believe it's now called Rhodes Scholars. And it was thought that trips would be an important part of senior colleges all over Maine. And that really has not turned out to be true. And senior college at Belfast did have trips for a time. And for all kinds of reasons, it turns out that they are much more difficult to be doing travel, and that and partly the why here in Belfast was doing trips, and whatever senior college did was somewhat redundant anyhow. But that, as far as for a volunteer organization can really manage, we've done very well with offering 50 to 60 courses a year. And are unique among the senior colleges in having a location like the like Hutchison Center, where we can meet everybody on one day.
Yep.
And
morning, afternoon,
and morning, afternoon, two sessions, morning, afternoon, and where we can have the fellowship time.
Yep. Yep.
and our famous cookies and coffee refreshments,
Right.
which no other senior college has.
Right. Right.
And has been really a kind of at the heart of the community building that we're able
Yep.
to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Belfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the presence of the Hutchinson Center, which emerged at the point that senior college seems to have also been emerging, was a wonderful symbiosis.
Well, yeah, it was perfect. And then now a name I should remember is not coming to me about
Yeah.
that. The first director of the Hutchinson Center.
Right. Was it Meg someone?
No.
That wasn't it. Okay.
Now I'm even now I'm even
Don't worry.
more lost than I was.
Yeah.
But was very involved and it was on the board at senior college at the beginning.
Right.
So it was fortuitous.
So this is all extremely interesting, and I'm sure would be interesting to people also who don't know, as I don't, the history of Belfast Senior College. But I'm sensing, that it was the senior college in Maine, established by a rabbi, yourself, congregational minister. There's a kind of religious subtext.
Well, there certainly was for Harry Skye, the rabbi who was at the beginning of this. In a very general sense, in that all people, including seniors, are seeking meaning and significance in their life, and that ongoing learning and the opportunities for sharing are contribute to that, are a part of that.
Right.
And I've certainly found that myself, where I have enjoyed teaching older adults, more so than I did teaching 20-something-year-olds, in the sense that our students at senior college bring so much life experience and reflections on themselves and society and where they've been, that just makes the conversation richer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think goes right to what Rabbi Skye's thought was.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Like
brilliant. That. And I think last year there was a little trip before the pandemic from Belfast Senior College people, but so it's had more local trips in the state of Maine rather than, say, international travel trips. Is that right?
Yeah, some years ago there were some out of town trips.
Yeah,
a very nice one to Boston and museums and to Quebec City a time or two.
Yeah, but
gradually we've come to see that that's very difficult to do, and gave some people the impression that senior college was for people who could afford trips like that,
right,
hotels and so forth,
right,
and not for others. So since then, we have a special events committee that has a number of trips every year, but we've been carpooling and gone to places that were within an hour's drive, say. Right. The Maine State Museum, for instance, or the Langley Center in Thomaston, I guess it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's still there, but as you said, the heart of the meeting is the fact that everybody can be together in one place at the Hutchinson Center for a whole day, the inside of a whole day.
And the other senior colleges that can't do that have been successful. Yeah. But we have that extra. Yeah. That's wonderful. And that we're very much missing this year.
Yes, absolutely. Although we've done pretty well with adapting to Zoom, all things considered, as this conversation attests.
We have.
We're still trying to sustain connections and so on. When you started at senior college, were the numbers about the same as they are now, or how would you compare?
That's a good point, because especially for us board members, and the presidents, or any board, I guess, numbers become very important. And but the truth is, Senior College at Belfast has been around at around 500 members from the beginning, and just constant through, and up and down little bits. So the people who are worried about that really don't need to be, because we have a niche here.
Yeah.
In the state of Maine and in this area.
Yep.
That has been just incredibly successful over 20 years. So,
Yep. Has the Belfast Senior College worked with other local organizations? Like you mentioned, well, I was thinking of the Historical Society. You mentioned something about that, or the library, or I don't know, local schools.
how have we worked with them? We've done very little in the way of what you might call joint programming. We've taken advantage of expertise to recruit teachers from some of these organizations.
Yep.
Teachers and speakers.
Yep.
And for quite a few years, there was a community service committee that organized groups of senior college volunteers to work with some of the nonprofit agencies. For instance, the Thanksgiving Basket Project of Waldo Cap.
Right.
A group from senior college would do some of the follow-up calls for people who had applied for a basket, for instance.
Right.
Or they did some of the, there's a literacy volunteers had a program for seniors to go read in the schools, and some senior college would do that. Right. We were the only senior college in the state to do anything like that, and haven't been able to sustain it, largely because for the times when there was an active community service committee, it was in truth one-person committees for whom it was a job. So it's sort of like arranging travel. There's an incredible logistic burden for doing this kind of thing.
Yep.
And where it was not so hard to get people to come out and volunteer for a day, to organize the whole business and develop the relationship with the community agencies is really a job.
Right.
And that's exactly what we have not been able to.
Right. I was thinking how this past spring we got connected, I'm not quite sure how, but maybe through a member of the board or something, with the Camden conference. So that would be a way of connecting to an event that takes place annually.
Well, and this is, we're getting into kind of murky territory here.
Okay, well, I won't go too far. Right.
I'm saying, what does connect mean?
Oh, I see. Okay.
What's involved in
yeah, I see. I sort of meant a crossover, so we could register a Camden speaker also in Belfast Senior College.
And we've done some of that. We've tried to, we've had courses that were on the same topic as Camden conference in the past.
Yeah.
And
but
nothing in the way of trying to coordinate our curriculum with theirs, or
right. No, I get that. I was just thinking about the way in which there was a kind of mutual support, or could be mutual support, although the library operates quite well independently and so on and so on. I was just, as a new person.
We've used the Abbott room at the library.
Yeah.
Programs.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Um, so the future looks pretty good. We look backwards now. I want to just look forward for a second. I mean, Belfast Senior College seems to be doing pretty well. It's come through, like all senior colleges across the state, through making a transition online, and that may go on. I'm not sure how you see that, but as you look forward to the future, do you see something different, something similar? What do you see?
I don't see any reason why senior college shouldn't continue to be a very successful enterprise of over the long term. I was very doubtful that the Zoom was going to amount to anything, and I turned out to be mistaken about that. Thanks to you and largely to you and some of the others, it's worked out quite well. The challenge that we will have is that our in-person program, I think, will remain our primary effort. But to be able to produce 50 to 60 classes a year for that, plus doing additional ones online, is going to be, well, you're the curriculum chair, so this was going to fall on you.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge.
It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I think for my own mind, the challenge is acute when there's even a discussion of running a course in the Hutchinson Center that is both in real time and online. I've done that before, and it's really a stretch. I mean, I was just going to ask you, how have you found the transition to Zoom? Because I mean, that is an effort in itself.
Well, I've only taught one class on Zoom, so it's just from that experience, and it was different in the sense of I felt, because I'm always a little bit ad-libbing in my teaching, and the dead time doesn't work very well on Zoom. So that there really isn't time to think about what the next step ought to be, but that needs to be pretty much packaged.
Yeah, exactly.
And kept,
that is right.
kept moving along.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed my class. It was on the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower. I enjoyed the class, but it was teaching that was quite different. Even though I would have done the same material in an in-person class, the teaching itself was different.
Because of what you're describing, the need not to have dead space, but the need to be interactive and I've found the interaction to be, well, a challenge in the sense that people, probably because of the dead time issue, of people interrupting, trying to collect their thoughts, and I ended up, and I thought this worked out quite well, keeping everybody muted. And that when they wanted to make a comment or ask a question, to send me a note on chat. Good.
And that from time to time, I would look at the chats.
Did you have a host for that class? Somebody to help you with the tech issues?
No.
But was that your choice?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, one thing I did is I bought a second monitor. I have two monitors.
Right. So you
So I can have, if I'm going to want to show something on the share screen with Zoom, I can have it up already.
Fantastic.
While I can see the class on the other monitor.
So you had the chance to do something that not many instructors do, which is have the material that you were showing on one and then keep an eye on the class on the other.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I had to. I bought the monitor just for that.
Oh, that's brilliant.
In my own mind, I thought I could not teach on Zoom without.
That's brilliant.
About that.
Because the rest of us, if I'm going to share a screen, once I've shared the screen, then I don't see you unless you're a tiny little glitch on the side, a tiny little postage stamp on the side, which means I can only see that you're still there. I can't see your reactions, which is exactly the point you're making about missing real time. Because
It is.
when we teach, we are interacting with the whole person.
Also, and we had some good conversations, email conversations beyond class, resulting from people's responses to the class. So that was good. But missing was the time before class, during the break, and after class that we have when we're in person.
Yes.
Where I'd usually get to class 15 minutes or half an hour ahead of time, and partly just to be with any students that came there early. And I would also stay in the room during break time for that reason, to be able to chat with people, and I'd stay after. And that you don't have that on Zoom. Right.
Okay, so I want to ask you one last question, because we've had a really nice chat for really at least over half an hour, which is great. And it means that not everybody will see this chat all the way through, because our human capacity these days is for shorter sound bites. What would your life be like if you hadn't had senior college?
Well, senior college became a very big part of my life here in Belfast, for what 14 of the 20 years that I've been here. On the other hand, I was a minister in the church. I was working. I was 14 years on the board of Waldo Cap, which is also a very big part of my life here. I was on the board of the Healthy Waldo County Public Health, active in the Clergy Association. I was an officer of my denomination. And so I had a finger in a lot of things.
Right, you did. Yeah.
But gradually, and towards in the last few years, senior college became the primary.
Right.
Of those, and for which I'm very grateful.
Yeah. Well, we are very grateful that you've been involved with senior college for lo these many years, and that you're still doing it.
Oh, thank you.
That's a wonderful thing. Good. And also, Arlin, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure for me to hear about you and your history and your teaching, and also Jack, which we're looking forward to. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay, goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.